Good morning. Welcome back to the Wolf and the Bear podcast. So I'm a little bit in a hurry, but I don't know why. I really need to get this out. And so I'm going to try to do that in under 20 minutes. Let's see if we can do this. Okay. A couple of weeks ago, I was talking with a client, and the topic of discussion somehow sort of came into the fact that this individual did not know themselves very frequently. And again, when I say very frequently, what I mean is so many of us can get stuck responding in habits, right? So we check out of action and creation, and then we sort of fall into responding. So, all of our willpower, whatever's left of it after the craziness of life, and it not being taught intuitively for us to check in with ourselves in any real way. And so then we're kind of wondering, where is our energy level at? Why can't we execute the way we did last week? And then the guilt and shame for a lot of us, especially in the topic of productivity, starts to drain on us. And so much of what we do in a day-to-day way that takes our own energy and really disempowers it is by not knowing it. And when I say not knowing it, not gauging it. So every single thing that we have that has a finite resource, we have a gauge for it, right? So that we never run out, because there's an understanding that if it's something it's supposed to be full and it runs on an exhaustive system to where it needs to be replenished, it behooves us to know when we're getting close and need to stop and recharge, stop and acquire what we need to continue to function forward. And so this is the meditation that was brought to me. I'm not this smart, but it's very important, and I keep finding it necessary within people. And also, by the way, I'm going to say something very, very honest. I have been trying to do this every morning. And last month, I probably executed it 10 times, which is, it's a third. That's less than a third. That was February. So I was frustrated with myself because I thought, you say you need to know your energy and you need to do this, but it's just another thing to do. It's another habit to have. It's another thing to remember, and it's a way to honor yourself. So if you don't have a habit of honoring yourself, you're going to stumble on trying to do this and just stumble, be bad at it for a while. But recognize that the one day that you do it over the one you didn't is a win. It's not like it's for you in the day, in the moment, in the here and now. That's the only value it has, actually. It doesn't matter if you didn't do it yesterday. Okay. So we start by, it's completely a diagnostic relationship with yourself. And sometimes for me, it helps me to write it down as I go because I can knock it out a little bit faster. But I'm going to break it down from the perspective of a stick figure. You start with the head. And the way my guides like it is they like it where it is in percentages, because that's a me thing. Or I also like 0 out of 10, but that's kind of the same thing. And when you are gauging the head aspect of the stick figure meditation, you're asking yourself, honest to goodness, where is your temperament? Where is your patience? Where is your mood? If you woke up feeling angry and frustrated to be alive, essentially, we've all been there, or unmotivated, or like you're dragging yourself out. If you're starting the day like that, that is a symptom that you are having existences and experiences that are patterning you to perceive the living moment, the waking moment, the anticipation of having to live through the day not well, with not much optimism or hope, or, it's skewed. So that's something to know. Can you go fix it right now? Absolutely not. But we know when we're at a bad place, or we should try to know. If things just aren't going my way, I need to know that about myself, because it helps me buffer against being rude for no reason. I already know I don't feel well. I know I feel disempowered. It's a natural human immature instinct to go try to take that from somebody else by being rude, or by trying to over explain something to them, or by trying to in any way have some kind of energy exchange to where I feel like I wound up on top. That doesn't make somebody a villain if they accidentally fall into this pattern. It makes you open to opportunities of evolution if you come to find that you do that a lot, because the reality is it's a cheap thrill. And you're going to sort of, there might be a time where you look back later and you regret how you treated other people in your wounded state. Anyways, once we know where our mind is at, that is a authentic snapshot of how we're going to relate to the world. And it's not to change, it's to judge authentically and clinically. That's part of knowing oneself. I'm in a pissy mood, right? That's how I feel today. That's how I woke up today. The next question is I drop down to the heart space. And the heart on the stick figure is talking about emotional availability, right? I might be in a really good mood. I woke up, I got some sleep. I know I'm going to be alone all day. Like I'm anticipating a great day and I'm excited about it. But my emotional availability, what I can offer of myself to others, is very low. So make sure that you don't build a correlation of judgment. Open yourself to the idea that duality is what we do. We are agents of duality and we are agents of balance. That's our role. That's what we do. And that's why we constantly are moving through and transmuting energy. That's why we're constantly changing almost on an identity level. We just don't realize that we are intended to be that in state of flux. Every single day that all those numbers change, if you do this as a tracking system, it will inform you about patterns about yourself sometimes. Like, hey, you always are in a better mood when when your expectation is that you don't have to share your heart. Well, then that's something to let yourself know, hey, I might need to spend more time alone if I feel that much joy and excitement of when I can. That something might need to change to bring balance, right? Because if I'm all that much excited about being alone, that's maybe, some could say that's an imbalance. Some could say that's honoring what I need. Who's to say? It's for one to know about self. Out of the heart, you go to the arms. To me, they showed me the arms as the symbol of strength, what you can lift in a day. And so again, this is something that is individuated in some ways from the perspective of I can be in a terrible mood and I could not want to share my heart with anybody, but my energy levels are very high. And maybe that's because I'm agitated. Maybe that's because I'm late. I'm behind the 8 ball. I've been pushing something back. So that anxiety is generating energy that registers as physical energy to go operate out in the world on a physical level, which maybe the trade-off then means I'm not operating much in spirit or emotion. I've shut that down to push forward my consciousness into moderating the physical world, which some could say it does require more chi, more willpower, and more energy, because that's co-creative. A lot of the other stuff is internal in your own energy. So knowing oneself, I'm at a 9 out of 10 today. I can knock out the world. Good to know. Again, all of this ends with good to know. From the arms, you drop down to the stomach, the gut. And that is sort of where you check. And again, you're not on a therapist couch where you can't get up until this is all solved. That all these numbers should resemble what would make you feel valuable because of a narrative that is questionable because we are unreliable narrators to ourselves and our own value often. Or it's easier to not know that just because of the nature of, we don't self-reflect as much. And plus, if you have narratives that say what you perceive as negative anyway, you're just behind the 8 ball. I'm the queen of that. Like, it doesn't serve me anymore to try and isolate every single time. My gut's off, my stomach's off, something feels wrong. I know that I have this secret. I know that I'm ashamed of it. I need to process the shame. Haven't taken the time to do so because life hasn't permitted, but it's just there. And so by recognizing that you have things that have unsettled the gut, because that's sort of where instability lingers, because, we have our more responsive first responder defenses sort of, but there is a place that we hold things that are unresolved that are also causing us a sense of anxiety and stress. To know that they're there is the benefit of diagnostic. If you're starting your day, which by the way, this meditation is to begin the day. If you're starting your day, you can't just go tear yourself apart to try to fix stuff as you start the day. Acknowledge where the gut is. Acknowledge what's present and identify excitement in the day. And everyone thinks, well, there is truth that excitement isn't an organic thing. It is intended to be a creative thing that fuels our locomotion, our curiosity, and our desire to continue to locomote together in a world that's unreliable as far as nothing's promised to us. So excitement's all we have, because we can't assume that us investing our time in something is going to give us back something of equal value. We can't promise ourselves that. So we can promise ourselves to do something that we find curious enough, exciting enough, to get our attention and time and effort, knowing it is a promise to nothing if you are living in a state of balance with action and outcome. You're imbalanced when you perceive the outcome as the motivator for the beginning. That's an imbalance of, well, setting yourself up for expectation and disappointment and not even enjoying the process of being present. Now, back to the legs. That is a judgment on what you have just acknowledged. And think about these acknowledgments of oneself as a love language to yourself. So you are wanting to give yourself the benefit of the doubt. They're kind of saying you always want to round up or round down. Like you want to believe in yourself or you want to protect yourself. You want to assume, if you're in that mode where you think you can take over the world, presume that you can. Have the audacity and the gumption. If you feel 100%, barring manic, like we can kind of get ourselves in trouble, but we're just trying to honor what's true in that moment. And patterns are for the higher mind, right? For us to look at and reflect on later. But if we are that energized, perceive ourselves as capable and assume you can do it. That's the locomotion. If you feel that your mind is right, your heart is right, your energy levels are good, your gut and your sense of right and wrong and honoring who you are, alignment with who you are, which is in the gut, then your locomotion should reflect that. Don't waste that. This would maybe be the greatest day to go lay out by the pool because we've recognized today feels charged. Let's walk our day in alignment with where our energy is, what we can get done. And then the end of the meditation is dropping into the feet, and it's the acknowledgement of being grounded. Because what you have done is what 99.9 of the unconscious collective are not being taught how to do. Because this data collection that you do in the morning is an acknowledgement that you have chosen to come back into your body metaphysically, to know this about yourself, to be able to read your energy levels to yourself, right? This self-awareness of where you are. It is orienting your ship as best as possible to having the most appropriate day. And that's if you have no goals at all. As far as like something big, we have stuff we want to get done. Hey, today I'm going to go, do my taxes, right? Well, then maybe we attach fear to that. And then before the end of the day, we've done everything but that. Well, we recognize that then that must mean the next day we budget and we say, okay, I'm going to slow down the rest of my day because I have to fight demons just to get this done. I have anxiety around organization. I hate money. I don't like looking at it. So it means that I have to go to battle with myself to get done what I need to get done. And we have every topic could be that. Like we have so many topics. If you're trying to quit smoking, you have to recognize that you've got to back out of other things that cost you battery power because it is going to take you effort. You're going to have to fight through a habit, which is action you've repeated within your energy to the point where it takes on its own vortex, so to speak, automatic response. You have to kind of go in there and uproot that and then begin the process of cementing why you are changing something and the faith that you taking this action will bring you closer in alignment with who you are, i.e. you don't want to smoke anymore, so you don't smoke anymore. Okay. The other thing, if I was giving this to you homework, if you were my student, I would want you to do this 3 times in a week to start the process and log it, write it down, date it, write it down. I want you to, once you are done, notice how many times you wanted to revise it. And again, this is like the Russian dolls, the nested dolls. When you diagnose in this way, and you write it down, you're cementing that information in the physical world, like a ledger, which means you're capturing that moment in some ways, which means you get to go back to it potentially as it has a marker in the physical world of the moment that you were recording. Why sigils, why anything that records information is so powerful. You can go back and do a meditation of information. So maybe you decide later, hey, I finally mastered how to do this at least 3 times a week. and I'm wanting to kind of like, I love the idea of investigating more about myself. I'd like to learn where my self judgments are. Well, you are self judging every day that you do this, and you're trying to keep it empirical. But you are running through, and theoretically, hopefully, the way you should perceive this is I don't really have time. Like this diagnostic should be done as quickly as possible. It should be an almost auto response as you give yourself not enough time to lie to yourself, not enough time to tweak the numbers to look better for yourself. Because we do that. Like we so do that. I try to do that, and then I have to own part of honoring this process is not being silly. And that's what, like, imagine if you're, your higher self or your guides, and you're watching yourself fudge on a ledger that no one else is going to see, that doesn't matter, but we have some relationship potentially with what that means. So we should investigate that. So then later you can meditate over a day. Say you meditate over your worst day of the week, right? Well, that's the day that you're going to most likely lie to yourself, because we try to convince ourselves we're stronger than we are on days that we're weak, because in some form of understanding, we recognize that belief is our greatest, it's our everything. So it actually benefits us a little bit of a version of denial, as it does sort of buffer ourselves against a cascade of doubt. Now, then you can sort of wind that too far and go into delusion to where you get into that Neptunian sort of energy where it's like you can't get lost. Outrageous hubris towards your ability to do whatever out of creation is only in your benefit so long as it's still a tool. It's a tool to get you through that day you don't think you can do. It's not a tool to presume laziness or presume superiority. That's just the way it is. Okay. Understanding where your self-judgments are would be playing back in your head where you tried to lie. And we do it typically in the same places, or it can also elucidate where our current issue lies, because it's going to be the number we want to fudge. If my head is really together and I'm very non-judgmental about myself, the head part is not hard for me. I know when I'm pissy, I know when I'm in a good mood, and I know what that means in relationship to the other components. I don't sleep very well sometimes. So very often I acknowledge that my mood is very good, but my energy is very low. And what that does is it sets up a barrier for myself to where I won't let my mood accidentally become bad just because I'm tired. Now, obviously, there's a natural correlation to that. So I can't hold that ship or that house upright indefinitely. At some point, I got to sleep. But that knowledge is us saying that we have the ability to control, and we do, our energy we should not be trying to control it. We should be able to see it for what it is and respond accordingly. And we don't ever look to know what's up, so we don't respond accordingly. And then we look back and we wonder why we did what we did or why we didn't do what we did. And so all about this meditation at its core helps us get into alignment over time and stores information that, should we want to go back later to investigate more about ourselves, we don't have to go and sit for 30 minutes by an ocean and delve into our isms in our past. We have data that says, okay, I could probably trace this back to some of my mom, some about how all of my value has to do with what I can produce for her in the world. And that was my value. So if I could make her life better somehow, I had value. So then if I know that's what's up, helpful, but maybe not something I can address right now. Maybe I've got, it's the end of the year, money's crazy, end of year reviews. You know what I mean? Like there are times where we just can't deal with our mommy issues. We can't deal with our daddy issues. Acknowledging them, they're there, are the same thing as the sleep and the mood. You can acknowledge that it's there. You can acknowledge that it's out of alignment without panicking over it. Because once you acknowledge that it's there and you promise yourself that you will get to it, and out of grace and compassion with oneself, you recognize, hey, I just don't have it in my bank right now. I'm not ignoring it, and I'm keeping my eye on it so it continues to behave where I expect, which is I have expectations that I'll struggle with self-esteem sometimes. But if it becomes unconscious, if I let it get out of my eyesight and it starts acting outside of my understanding, my purview, then it can start messing things up. Then I can start unraveling relationships just for reasons I don't understand, but really it's mommy issues. So you see why you name it, to keep your eye on it so it can't move around on you. That's the goal of diagnostics. Mainly, I'm talking about in the gut. When you're recognizing, hey, oh, yeah, I still have this unsettling feeling about the fact that I know this is not working for me. And eventually it's affecting my happiness and my direction. So I need to change it. I can't do it right now, but I got this. That is relieving to your energy. It is a promise to oneself that you don't need to develop anxiety and panic and urgency in a human way, right? In this time way, this need of right now, I need to fix it, or I'm broken way, because you've promised it will be addressed by acknowledging that you know it's there, and we have a natural desire to sort of address it whenever we can. Also, by acknowledging it's there, we start to budget time for it because we're remembering we have to. It's like a chore. If you don't write it down, eventually you could easily, we're driven towards what feels good. Oftentimes, sometimes that's paired with a desire to not see what's there. So the natural feedback loop to go towards what feels good, and then the kind of natural human nature desire to avoid what doesn't feel good, what will cause pain, i.e. acknowledging aspects of oneself that might require effort to change, which can be devastating when you're exhausted anyway. And you're thinking, how can I go and find more things I need to do in an internal landscape on top of existing in the world out there? You know what I mean? But we do have it in us. And that's when you start slowing down. When we start acknowledging what's going on in the gut, it starts to impact, it should, if we're honoring ourselves and we understand what we need and we are willing to give it to ourselves over time, we start to budget in this unconscious way. Oh, yeah, I need to deal with that. Oh, yeah, I need to deal with that. And so before you know it, maybe you are taking the time off that normally your workaholic brain would never do, but you've taken time to acknowledge a need within yourself, and it's taken root as a motivator. And sometimes that only can happen by saying every day, damn it, I still have anxiety. I thought, well, I went to that silent retreat and I came back and I thought everything would be different, but dang, I still have anxiety. All these things that we come to find, and then what do we do with it? That is the magic or the power of this diagnostic meditation, and why I need to share it with people is because it's very fast. It's very automatic. You should be, what I do is I'll, on a whiteboard with my calendar, I'll just draw the stick figure, because part of that is it's me, the process of having to take action with my hands and my body without diagnosing yet. It's just like breathing, right? There is an intention that, for instance, when you want to control your energy, breath work is everything. It consolidates. If you demand it to do what you want, you time it. You take something automatic and you place your dominion over it. That's what can be done when we do things like every time you start this meditation, you draw the stick figure of the head, the torso, the legs, the arms, and the heart. And if you want to draw the belly, I don't like the way it looks. Like, it makes me, I have body issues. So one time I drew a circle to try to represent the gut, and I was like, dang it, I don't need to look at that. Like it. So I have my isms, but recognizing the gut, and I just put a line out to the side. So it looks kind of like a fake medical diagram. And that is when you can do that without judgment, without wanting to change it, without lying to yourself, and almost doing it with love, perceiving yourself as somebody who deserves this amount of calibration. On electronics, there's this thing called haptics, right? And you can troubleshoot them. And it's basically where it tells you where to put your finger, and then you place your finger on it so that it is developing trust within that screen and you, that where you place your finger, it will register your touch. It is reinforcing that it is an alignment, that you don't put your finger here and the cursor is way over here. That is what we're doing if you can authentically just run through the checklist. And take, by the way, if you have trouble loving yourself in an unconditional way, finding value in yourself in an unconditional way, which I do, most of us do, you might find that you take great pleasure in ranking something low. Almost like that kind of feeling of like raging against the world. Like, I'll get my lick back by acknowledging I have nothing to give today. There is a petulance in that. and a childishness in that we deserve to experience. And it is also a marker to indicate that you are processing some rage around what you have deprived yourself of. So if you start to acknowledge that you have no space for anyone in your heart every day, and that there's almost maybe a pleasure of acknowledging that it's shut down, because I am asking that it be, how much can you give of yourself to the world? Well, if you're feeling drained by the world, used by the world, believing that the world's not feeding back to you anything good that you're putting out or that you're owed, because we do sometimes feel that way. We believe in this system of fairness that sometimes, is there's a fairness that goes beyond our perception of what is fair. And sometimes it doesn't feel good to us when we think we're misaligned with fair for us, right? Not such a weird metaphysical topic, but highlight and recognize and celebrate the part of you that feels glee in something that ordinarily maybe wouldn't normally cause glee. Like sometimes we shouldn't normally be excited when we acknowledge we're at empty. But what would make us do so? When we are elated at the thought at being honored for what is, that we are taking the time to hear ourselves instead of driving ourselves into the ground and then wondering and asking of our body and our mind later, why aren't you okay? That's what we kind of do to ourselves, myself included. That feeling of negativity, like if you start to realize, acknowledging owning within yourself, I have nothing to give, just recognize that you can stall out there because there's a process, an ebb and a flow, and it's like breathing. And this process becomes challenging, and we have to refuel through the process of knowing ourselves. So what I mean by that is the hard part of the process of knowing oneself, sometimes the first layer of that is almost a distrust with oneself. And it kind of emerges like it would in another person to us, but it's ourselves to ourselves, which is kind of a distrustful petulance, too little, too late energy, almost like, oh, you care now? Well, I'm going to put 0 every single day to the heart. Since now you're listening, it's been shut down forever. So I'm going to make sure now that you're finally looking at yourself, it's shut down to make a point. We do that to ourselves, right? So just recognize that the hard part of that, the action of that, is acknowledging what's true about ourselves. So sometimes the opposite, that if that's the breath in, the breath out, that requires time as well, time of rest, time of inaction, time of in-judgment, might feel like that petulant, everything's shut down and, I just need to find myself and my mind's not all right. Just remember that eventually you can dismantle that energy, because that energy is a token and almost just it's that next level of the egg. It's fearful that you are not going to honor yourselves because maybe you haven't ever done that before. If you're starting a meditation like this and you've never done it before, you have no reason to trust that this is going to be a version of good for you. Right? So there's a version of you that might distrust yourself, and it's going to manifest as a nihilistic, zeros on everything. A lot of this can manifest whenever, say, we have a co-parent that's not doing anything. The petulance can turn into 0 on the mind, 0 on the heart. My gut's always tangled every day and I have no energy. And you just start detailing that every day. The idea should have been to give you permission to have rest. But if you've now turned that into, I am going to stake out my claim in this place of rest to recoup what I'm owed, now you're living in the past and you're sacrificing the future. You're saying, I'm owed something because of this disrepair. And instead of taking action in the future, I'm going to sit here in no action until I feel better. And unfortunately, you will eventually, but you are requiring time in that situation as the only healer. And we have so many more tools to vitalize, use energy, heal energy, reappropriate what you have to apply. We refinance cars. We don't ever think to refinance how our energy is spaced out. You can do that daily. It just requires us to know what's not working, where it's hemorrhaging, and reassessing. That's what every day this meditation leans you towards. And it requires so little time. Again, this should be very fast. It is most effective when you are most honest, which means most automatic sometimes. And if you really want to get yourself into focus, as you begin the process, you just say, hey, guys, help me cut the shit. Help me not lie. Help me land on the truth. I've got to get my day going. I got to get my kids to go to school. I got meetings starting at 8. I'm fighting with my husband right now. I don't have time to feel too much about this. I need the data. Give me the data. And then if it helps, sometimes for me, the symbol of it helps, draw the stick figure and then get on a roll. And don't forget to end the diagnostic energy with I am grounded. Because when you say I am grounded, it indicates I am present in the moment of who I am in this moment, and I don't need to do more. Because we get and we keep these cycles of trying to change ourselves or understand ourselves sometimes going throughout the day, potentially, or just this bubbling sense of uncertainty all the time. So we can't quiet it because we don't know, we haven't taken stock of what's active, so we don't tell it to be quiet. So much of our control comes down to just understanding what is. And then maybe a large portion is not fearing what could be. But so much healing happens in understanding what is. Everyone thinks understanding, or everyone believes that healing, the majority of it happens by understanding the causation of it, causation in quotations, of the imprinted energy that's you're still acting on, i.e. trauma, abuse, patterns from childhood. There is absolutely truth to that. Their origin story has room to work in uprooting it, in transmuting it from an active state to an inactive state, because you can't pull it out. It happened to you. Like, the experience is there. Your energy is in the experience, and that experience was in your energy. But you can prevent it from being an active energy. Prevent it from having unmet needs. If there's a part of you that needs closure about your childhood, you're going to need to go get that. And you're going to probably have to go and walk some of those paths. But you can't always do that in the here and now. So you remove the labels of the energy, my mom, the patterns of my upbringing, maybe the religious structure you grew up in that you don't fit anymore, that causes you pain when you think about sometimes, like whatever it is, remove the name of it, because that's not important in the function of feeling better. It is in the function of finding out why you feel poorly when left alone. But in the function of feeling better in the moment right now, there are things that we can do without having to go dig up the past that actually orients us to being, quote unquote, healed, more in alignment with where our energy actually is. And that is data, that's knowledge, that's self-awareness. Half of that battle is that. So I hope this has helped. Try to think if they have anything else they want to say about it, but I think that's the majority. Frankly, they just made a really great point, really great connection. If you want to take this onto something that is already sort of a pattern thing, this is a rudimentary, down and dirty, almost address to the chakra system within you, right? We're just not going through all 7, because it's for the majority of us who don't want to go learn a bunch of new things and take on all this data and information to create change, because we desperately want change, but we don't always have time to go do it the right way, quote unquote, learn how to do it the right way. So don't forget, these are always tools to organize. The chakra system is it's a tool for us to perceive what is in an organized way so that we can control it. Right? We humanize something that really authentically isn't that human. Think about it. Energy wheels spinning at a rate. If there's a right direction for them to spin, but they're capable of spinning the wrong direction, it's all data collection. It's which aspect of it is out of alignment. Is it spinning the opposite direction? Is it not spinning at all? Is it not bright like it needs to be? Like, is it dim? Is it slow? Is it too fast? Is it agitated? The idea of there being a direction it needs to spin, a brightness that's perceived as healthy, all these things, all that lets us know is it gives us a tool to rectify that without having to address why it's slow. The reason it's slow, like heart chakra, the reason it's slow might be heart, like family and upbringing, and it's around Christmas, so my heart's especially slow. But all I have to do theoretically, and I say theoretically because maybe I mean metaphysically, is I can close my eyes and set my mind's eye on regulating the heart. breathing with it as I slowly allow it to speed up. And when I say allow it, what I mean is I'm giving it energy. I'm sending it, and I'm bringing that topic into focus so that it can take my focus, i.e. my energy, and it's revitalized, because I'm saying I'm going to not focus on other things. I'm pulling that creative energy. Focus is creative energy. And I'm applying it to the heart with the intention to allow it to repair itself. I don't even need to know. You don't need to be a shaman to know how to fix it. You need to stare at an issue you see and understand. Ask that it be healed and be realigned into its natural state. It knows its natural state. You don't need to know it. You need to trust and send the energy that it be allowed to realign, right? It's not so complicated. It's a vibrational frequency, and either we're in it or we're not. I need the heart to be in it. Okay, I need to focus on the heart. If you want to say I need it to spin correctly, then you close your eyes and you try to envision it spinning correctly. If instead of the spinning, you visualize light and how much, is it bright or is it not bright? And then you try to breathe and bring that brightness up. See how the modality of what you're changing doesn't matter, because no matter what you're enacting change upon something, that is our right. That is our creation right. That is our power. So we are disempowered so much because we don't know how to enact change, and we think it's overcomplicated. So then we get scared of it. So then we don't go do it, because if change is that obscure in creation, and what's right in front of me, at least I know, the devil I know, I'm not going to go step out into the dark to go investigate change to then potentially fail it, right? Because we can sometimes start change and then come to find it's misaligned and have to do it again. That's the process of breathing in and out, in and out. Creation, destruction. Doesn't work. It's misaligned. Got to break it down and start again. When you become too afraid to interact with that process, unfortunately, that is the definition of stuck. So to begin the process of getting unstuck, or even to, if you're not stuck, to give yourself the highest possibility to get done what you want to at the pace you want to. Either, like some of us love lightning speed and we want to get everything done in the world. Getting aligned every day will help us achieve that speed, if that speed is appropriate. It will also keep us in alignment when it's time to slow down, which may not be right now, but if you're diagnosing yourself with some degree of regularity, you'll notice and you'll take action and you'll honor when it happens. That is the key of existence, managing our energy better, not hemorrhaging it all the time, not misusing it and burning ourselves out. Okay, I gotta go. I've already gone 40 minutes. It's always this way. You guys have a great day. I hope this helps. I just needed to put this in the universe. Have a good day. Bye.